Imagine being just a regular university student, and suddenly, you uncover a secret that could change the fate of humanity. Not a cure, not a weapon, but something far more powerful: the ability to create life from nothing. What happens when the pursuit of knowledge crosses the line? And what price must be paid for defying the laws of nature? In this video, we dive into the very moment everything changed for Victor Frankenstein.
I was born a Genovese, my family among the most distinguished in that small republic. My ancestors had long served as counselors and syndics, and my father was no exception, honored for his integrity and tireless dedication to public affairs. Yet he married late in life, a fact shaped by circumstance rather than choice. The story of his marriage reveals much of his character. A close friend of his, a merchant named Beaufort, had once enjoyed wealth and respect, but was brought low by misfortune. Unable to bear living in poverty among those who once admired him, Beaufort withdrew in disgrace with his daughter Caroline to Lucerne, living in obscurity and hardship. My father, saddened by this retreat and the false pride that drove his friend away, sought him out for nearly a year before finally finding him. When he did, he found Beaufort broken in health and spirit, surviving on a small sum of money meant only to sustain him briefly while seeking employment. But despair overwhelmed him. After months of suffering, he lay bedridden and dying. Caroline, with uncommon courage and tender devotion, cared for her father with humble work and sacrifice. But their resources dwindled, and ultimately, Beaufort died in her arms, leaving her alone and destitute. My father, like a guardian angel, took Caroline under his protection. After Beaufort's burial, he brought her to Geneva and placed her with a relative. 2 years later, she became his wife. Though much younger than my father, this difference only deepened their bond, a union built on reverence, gratitude, and a tender desire to protect and soothe a woman who had endured so much sorrow. My mother's frail health and shaken spirit were tended with the utmost care, and soon after their marriage, they sought renewal in the gentler climes of Italy, journeying through lands rich with wonders, hoping to restore her strength. It was in Naples that I was born, the first and for years the only child. To my parents, I was more than a son. I was their plaything, their idol, a fragile being entrusted to their care by heaven. Their affection was a constant, gentle guide. Patience, charity, and self-control shaped my earliest lessons, and my life was a seamless thread of happiness woven by their love. Though my mother longed for a daughter, none came until one day during a trip to the shores of Lake Como, my parents discovered a poor cottage that seemed filled with sorrow. Inside lived a peasant family struggling to feed 5 children. Among them was one child who stood apart, Elizabeth Lavenza, a girl whose golden hair and clear blue eyes seemed almost celestial amid the hardship. Her story touched my mother deeply, daughter of a noble Milanese, orphaned and left in the care of these humble foster parents after her mother died in childbirth, with her father either dead or imprisoned. her inheritance lost to confiscation. When my father returned from Milan, he found Elizabeth playing with me in our villa. With his permission, my mother persuaded the child's caretakers to entrust her to their protection. Thus, Elizabeth became my more than sister, my beloved companion, and the light of my childhood. Her presence was a blessing, her beauty and kindness admired by all. The day she arrived, my mother had called her a pretty present, and I, in the innocence of youth, accepted her as mine to cherish and protect forever. From the first moment, Elizabeth and I were inseparable. Our bond was deeper than mere kinship. She was my constant friend and joy, my future intertwined with hers as closely as if bound by fate itself. We grew up side by side, barely a year apart in age, like two branches of the same tree. There was never a quarrel between us. Our bond was pure harmony. Our differences didn't divide us. If anything, they pulled us closer. Elizabeth was calm and steady, a serene presence in our world, while I burned with eagerness and an insatiable thirst for knowledge. She found joy in the poetic skies and the breathtaking Swiss landscape around our home. Majestic mountains, the dance of seasons, the quiet hush of winter, and the lively chaos of summer. She admired it all with a peaceful smile. Meanwhile, I was restless, probing every mystery, desperate to uncover the hidden causes behind every marvel. When my younger brother was born, 7 years my junior, my parents finally settled down in our homeland. We had a house in Geneva and a charming country estate on Belle Rive, along the lake's eastern shore, just over a league from the city. One of those friends was Henry Clairvaux, the son of a Geneva merchant, but no ordinary boy. Henry had a wild imagination and loved adventure, hardship, even danger for danger's sake. He devoured tales of knights and heroes, wrote heroic songs, and spun stories of chivalry. I can say without exaggeration that I had the happiest childhood anyone could wish for. My parents were the embodiment of kindness and indulgence. They weren't tyrants controlling our lives, but creators of all our joy and delight. My nature was sometimes stormy, my passions fierce, but instead of childish games, my energy was channeled into a burning desire to learn, not just anything, but the secrets of heaven and earth. Meanwhile, Henry focused on the moral world, life stage, heroic virtues, and human deeds. His dream was to be remembered as a noble benefactor of humanity. Elizabeth's saintly spirit illuminated our home. Her sympathy, smile, gentle voice, and the soft glow of her eyes blessed and inspired us. I take great pleasure recalling my childhood before misfortune darkened my mind and twisted my bright visions of usefulness into bitter self-reflection. When I look back for the origins of the passion that ultimately ruled my fate, I see it started from humble, nearly forgotten beginnings. Natural philosophy was the guiding force of my destiny. I want to explain how I came to love it. At 13, we went on a pleasure trip to the baths near Thonon. Bad weather forced us to stay an extra day at the inn, where I stumbled upon a book by Cornelius Agrippa. I opened it listlessly at first, but soon the strange theories and wondrous tales inside sparked a fire in me. It felt like a new light had dawned on my mind, and I hurried to share this discovery with my father. He glanced at the title page carelessly and said, "Ah, Cornelius Agrippa, my dear Victor, don't waste your time on such nonsense." If instead he had taken the time to explain that Agrippa's ideas were outdated, replaced by modern science with real, practical powers, I might have put the book aside and returned eagerly to my studies. But since my father's glance was so brief, I continued reading with growing hunger. Back home, I made it my mission to get all of Agrippa's works, then those of Paracelsus and Albertus Magnus. I devoured their wild fantasies like secret treasures known only to me. I've always been eager to uncover nature's secrets. Despite the great work of modern philosophers, I often left my studies dissatisfied and restless. To me, even those great minds seemed like novices, fumbling in pursuit of the unknown. The simple peasant knew the practical uses of nature's elements better than most learned men. But these books promised deeper knowledge. I took their word and became their devoted student. It seems strange for the 18th century, but alongside formal schooling in Geneva, I largely taught myself my favorite subjects. My father wasn't scientific, and I was left to wrestle with a child's blindness and a student's thirst for knowledge. Under my new guides, I eagerly pursued the philosopher's stone and elixir of life, especially the latter. Wealth mattered less. Glory and the power to banish disease and make man nearly immortal thrilled me. And there were other visions too. My favorite authors promised the raising of ghosts and devils, which I eagerly sought through my experiments. Though I failed, I blamed my own inexperience rather than the skill of these masters. Then, around 15, an event shifted everything. At Bellerive, we witnessed a violent thunderstorm rolling in from the Jura Mountains. Thunder cracked like cannon fire, and I watched with fascinated delight. Suddenly, a fiery bolt shot from an ancient oak near our house, and when the light faded, the tree was gone, reduced to shredded strips of wood, unlike anything I'd ever seen. The next morning, a natural philosopher with us explained his new theory on electricity and galvanism, astonishing me far beyond the mystical wonders of Agrippa and company. But with this revelation, my old studies lost their charm. I felt as if nothing could ever be truly known. In a sudden caprice of youth, I abandoned those pursuits, scorned natural history and its offspring as deformed and worthless, and developed deep disdain for a science that seemed incapable of real knowledge. Instead, I turned to mathematics and its firm foundations, believing them worthy of my attention. Such is the strange construction of the human soul, and how fragile the threads binding us to success or ruin. Looking back, I feel this miraculous shift was the last effort of a guardian angel to save me from the looming storm. It brought a rare peace and joy after abandoning those tormenting studies, yet it was all in vain. Fate was too strong, and her laws decreed my utter and terrible destruction. During my early days at Ingolstadt, I encountered two professors who shaped the course of my studies and ultimately my fate. First, I met Mr. Krempe, the professor of natural philosophy, a gruff and unpleasant man who dismissed my earlier interests in alchemy as childish nonsense. He bluntly told me that the time I spent studying outdated alchemists like Albertus Magnus and Paracelsus was wasted, and urged me to start my education anew with modern science. Although his tone and manner repelled me, I had already doubted the value of those old studies and was not offended. But it was the lectures of his colleague M. Waldman that truly awakened my soul. Unlike Kremp, Waldman was kind and gentle, and his enthusiasm for chemistry was contagious. He spoke with deep respect about the history of the science and its pioneers, acknowledging the debt modern philosophers owed to those early visionaries, even if their ideas had sometimes been misguided. His words kindled in me a powerful ambition. He described how modern chemistry had abandoned the foolish promises of immortality and the transmutation of metals, focusing instead on real, miraculous discoveries. How scientists could now unravel the mysteries of nature, understand the workings of life and the universe, and even imitate the forces of thunder and earthquakes. Hearing this, my mind was set ablaze. I felt as if every fiber of my being was stirred to pursue knowledge with single-minded determination. I vowed to push beyond all that had been done before, to explore the unknown, and to reveal the deepest secrets of creation. That night, sleep eluded me. My thoughts churned with a fierce, restless energy. I felt a turbulent storm within, a rebellion of the soul, as if every part of me demanded action and change. At dawn, though exhausted, I awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, resolute to abandon my old studies and devote myself fully to the science that now called to me. In the following days, I visited M. Waldman privately, where his warmth and kindness made an even greater impression than his lectures. He encouraged my enthusiasm, assuring me that if my dedication matched my talent, success was certain. He advised me not to limit myself to chemistry alone, but to embrace all branches of natural philosophy, including mathematics, to become a true man of science. He introduced me to his laboratory and the instruments I would need, promising access to his own equipment once I was ready. That day marked a turning point in my life, the moment when my future was irrevocably decided. The dreams and ambitions that had once seemed distant now burned within me like a consuming flame, driving me forward on a path from which there could be no turning back. From the moment I fully devoted myself to natural philosophy, especially chemistry, it became my sole obsession. I eagerly devoured the works of modern scientists, attending lectures and forging friendships with scholars at Ingolstadt. Even Professor Kremp, despite his unpleasant manner, offered me valuable knowledge, while M. Waldman became a true friend and mentor. Waldman's gentle guidance and encouragement made the most complex subjects clear and approachable, fueling my passion. My dedication grew with each passing day, until I was often still in my laboratory long after dawn, much to the surprise of my peers and professors alike. Yet, It was my fascination with the human body and the mystery of life itself that drove me most deeply. I pondered, what is the source of life? To explore this, I turned to anatomy and the natural decay of the human form. I spent long hours in vaults and charnel houses, observing the transformation from life to death, from vitality to corruption, even as worms consumed once living flesh. Then, out of this grim study, a brilliant revelation struck me, an insight so clear and profound that I was astonished no other thinker had uncovered it. After tireless labor, I discovered the cause of generation and life itself. And more astonishingly, I realized I could bestow animation on lifeless matter. The initial shock of this discovery gave way to intense joy and ambition. I stood at the summit of human knowledge, holding a secret sought by the greatest minds throughout history. Though you might be eager to know the secret I uncovered, I must withhold it for your own safety. Learn from me the dangers of unchecked ambition and the peril in seeking knowledge beyond our nature. With this power in hand, I hesitated on how to proceed. Creating life was daunting. The intricate assembly of muscles, fibers, and veins posed a monumental challenge. My imagination, fired by success, urged me toward the latter. Materials were scarce, so I resolved to create a giant, a being about 8 feet tall, to ease the difficulties of minute detail. The exhilaration that propelled me was like a hurricane. Life and death, once sacred boundaries, now seemed conquerable. Yet the toil took a toll. My cheeks grew pale. My body weakened by confinement. Failure was frequent, but hope never left me. Summer came and went, with the world blooming and flourishing around me. But I remained blind to its beauty, consumed entirely by my work. I ignored my family's letters, knowing my silence would worry them, especially my father's gentle warnings about neglecting my duties. I promised that once my work was done, I would seek rest, amusement, and recovery. It was a cold, dreary night in November when I finally saw the result of my long, exhausting labor. Around me lay the instruments I had gathered to breathe life into the lifeless form at my feet. The clock had just struck 1. The rain tapped sorrowfully against the window, and my candle flickered weakly. Then, through the dim light, I saw it. The dull yellow eye of the creature blinked open. It breathed heavily, its limbs twitching with a strange, unnatural convulsion.